To go ahead and get started today, I've identified 3 types of people that attend these trainings. And to get you thinking about that, I want you to decide which of these groups you belong to. We won't take a survey. You can just think about it in your mind. One group that comes to these meetings is just wanting to get out of the cold, and we can see how they're portrayed in this video clip. Now that won't be this type of morning. This is going to be a good morning. Now that's just one group I've identified. There's another group. See if this one maybe is more of what you might fit into.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät und das Gerät. Überlebensradar.
Mayday, Mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
Have you ever felt that way? I certainly have felt that way with some of the questions I've been asked in different capacities. But if you don't identify maybe with those 2 groups, let me present one more group to think about. This group is here to learn new skills.
Mr. Goodman? What makes you think you're qualified for this job?
Oh! Oh! Stop punching me! Please, sir, no! Don't throw me!
Not the fish.
Don't touch me! Keep your hands off of me! Don't throw me out!
Thanks.
Here it is, huh? Get it?
The title of that clip is Learning New Skills in Times of Crisis, job skills. That was just to warm us up a little bit. The topics today that we're covering are about agency accounts, and we're covering 4 main topics: opening and closing an agency account, dispersing funds, incoming funds, and special considerations. This website, this of course is Route Y, and what I want to show you is how to get to financial services website. I would highly recommend that you bookmark this website that I'm about to show you. First of all, on Route Y, you look for faculty and staff, and that's just at the top, about the 3rd one from the left. Once you click on faculty and staff, you'll click on general services, and from there, from the drop-down, you'll look for financial services. Once you click on that, you'll see this website, financial services. And on this website, if you look at the top, you'll see indicated here at the top one called Forms. And it has I put a little arrow there. Once you click on Forms, you'll see another option pop up that reads Agency I-20 Forms. And that, if you look on the right, it's toward the right, the second from the right. Once you click on that, you'll see this drop down. And these are most of the forms that we use in agency accounts. You've heard the slogan, we have an app for that. Well, the slogan for us is, we have a form for that. And there's probably one form for every procedure that we do in financial services and treasury services. But the intention there is just to record the information properly and to help us remember what information we need to get from you in order to better facilitate your processes. Let me just read these to you briefly. The first option, the first bullet on this menu is agency account instructions. And again, that's We've actually printed out a few copies, and if you don't have one, there are still a few available at the entrances. But again, you are also welcome to just print that off the website. I highly recommend that if you're new, please print this out and read through it. And it goes step by step on many of the procedures that are necessary for your financial transactions. And again, that's where you can find that document, Agency Account Instructions. The next bullet on that list is signature card form. This form, well, I'll go ahead and let me show you a picture of that. We'll go ahead and skip forward a little bit. Well, I will show you in a minute. Let me just read to you the other forms on here. There's also a check register for those wanting to record their transactions and make sure everything balances out. There's also a check stock request, and that is what you'd use to request more checks. We'll show you what that looks like. We have a check template. We have a stop payment request, an open agency account form, and a close agency account form. Let's go ahead and get into those forms a little more specifically, and we have some images of those. To open up an agency account, you need what is called a request to set up an agency operating unit. What you're asking for with this document is a specific number for your account. With this number, you'll be able to write checks, and you'll also be able to collect dues and income. And so that is what you'll use to open up an account. This next form is an officer and advisor agreement. Another way to mention this is it's a signature card form. Now, when I say signature card, I'm not talking about the card that you use in the university with your photo on it. Signature card simply means a document that has your signature on it so that we can identify all the transactions that you've authorized with your signature. Now, we call this an officer and advisor agreement, but it's used as a signature card form. And you'll see here in the middle with this table, this is where we'll actually have your name and your signature. It's an officer and advisor agreement so that it shows what responsibilities you are taking over once you become an officer of your club. It is a financial responsibility, and it is a place of trust. With this particular form, when you pull it up online, it's interactive. All the areas that are shaded blue, you can actually type into and then print. This last column is white, obviously, so that when you print it out, you can then sign it and show your signature. Part of my responsibilities include verifying each check that is written. I will pull up your signature card for your club and verify that the signatures on a particular check coincide with the signatures on this document. And I'll do that for every check that is cashed from agency accounts. So it's very important that you actually keep this document updated. In some cases, you might need a new one every semester. Other cases, you might just need to update it yearly. But again, please keep this current. If a name does not match, I will send an email or I'll contact you by phone to verify the transaction is valid and authorize the bank to clear it. And again, that is the agency officer and advisor agreement. This next slide will show you how to close an agency account. And we have a form for this to show you the step-by-step process of closing an account. First of all, we need you to make sure the form is complete. We also need to make sure that you know the balance needs to be zero. For those who are creating charters at this time, it's very important. You may want to include language in your charter that specifies what to do with a remaining balance should your club close. If you don't have that language, then it's unknown where we can allocate those funds for you. So you know, funds and agency accounts become inactive if there are no transactions for 2 years. And when you are closing an account, it's very important that you provide us with all your records that you have in your office for your financial transactions. Make sure that you turn those into us upon closing the agency account. Agency checks. What you see here is an image of a check, and you'll notice that there are 3 parts. This is called a voucher format. This top portion is the check, and that is the part that you'll just detach and you'll give to whoever you have a transaction with. This middle section is used as just a remittance to the person you are paying to give more information, such as an invoice number. This bottom portion is something you want to keep for your own records, and this is where you'll want to maintain the the details of the transaction. Keep in mind that we do have check images available. If you're ever needing an image of a check that was written previously, contact me. You can email me, and I'm happy to send you an image of that check. Keep in mind, we do have from time to time a few overdrafts that occur in agency accounts. Please keep your accounts in balance. When there is an overdraft, we will assess a fee to your agency account. So be very careful about balancing your records. And please keep meticulous records. Keep receipts. There may be times when, for example, you're being audited and we need to see a receipt for a transaction. We don't want you to come up empty in those circumstances. Keep all receipts and keep these records of these checks. Here's a closer look at these agency checks. Notice that each check requires two signatures, two authorized signatures from that signature card that I showed you previously. And in order to be valid, they need to be there. Regarding these two signatures, if, for example, you're being reimbursed for a purchase you made for your club, do not sign your own check. These two signatures need to be different from the payee. It's a security measure, and it's for your protection. So again, please, if you are being reimbursed, have two other officers sign on that check. Be sure to include the date, the amount of the check. You'll notice here in red I've circled a memo line. For every check, this needs to be completed, and you just need to describe the purpose of the transaction. Also keep in mind that these checks are not valid over $2,500. Now, the exception to that is if you need to make a payment higher than that and you don't want to use 10 checks to do it, please contact me 1 week in advance. If you give me the check number and the amount that you need it to clear for, I can authorize the bank to clear it for that amount. And you only have to use one check, and it can be over $2,500. But unless I hear from you, these checks are not valid for over $2,500. Keep in mind, these checks shouldn't be written out to cash. If you have a pressing need, let me know what your circumstance is, but generally these checks aren't written out to cash because there's no way to keep track of what happens to the cash after that. And again, regarding those images, we can provide you images of checks if you need that for your records later on. Agency checks. Now, these checks with this voucher format can actually be fed into your laser printer. And if you go back to the Financial Services webpage and you go to that drop-down, you'll see one that says Check Template. With this check template, you can actually type in your information and then print onto these checks. What I do want to caution you about is this particular template was made for my printer, and so it might be off slightly on your printer. You'll want to do a test page to see if it's off, and if it's off, if it's a terrible amount. If you're printing over boxes and lines, then you'll want to consider using maybe a coworker's printer, or otherwise maybe we can make some adjustments to the form for you. But be sure to do a test page. But the design here is intended so that you can actually type on these checks, and the top portion you'll fill out, and then it'll copy the same information in the bottom two sections. So you're just filling out this top portion, and then it automatically feeds into the second and third portion, and then you have your records when you detach it, and you can hold on to that for your record keeping. One other feature about these type checks that I want to show you, again, we can never have too much information in this memo line. And what we've done is you can actually fill in 3 lines of information in the memo area, and it'll copy all that information throughout the different parts of the voucher format of the check. So again, please be specific. Anytime you're reimbursing, be sure to mention what it was for. It's appropriate to include names here or other details that, again, will help us know what the transaction was for and how those funds were distributed. And again, this is the template. What you see here is an image that I will get periodically regarding a transaction that has been made. And what it is you'll see here in the middle that it's for Walmart. That was the payee in this particular case. A check was written out to Walmart. And what Walmart will do is actually run the check immediately and process it electronically. And most times they'll give you the check back. It'll have some receipt information printed on the check so you can't reuse it. But again, what I'd get back is this image. Now there's a few problems with this image. Do you see what club this transaction is for? If you do, please let me know, because I'll spend time trying to figure out who this is for. Do you see the purpose of this transaction? It's not on there either. What I have to do then, I have to do a little bit of detective work. What I need to, from this image, I'll go to the bottom and I'll see this check number. And what I'll need to do is go back in my records and see what organization that check was originally issued to. And then I can track it down. But keep in mind that this image, what I'll have to do is I'll have to contact you and ask you for a copy of the original check, because the original check will give me the purpose of the transaction, it'll give me the payee, it'll also give me the club information, and it'll also give me who authorized the transaction. And that is another thing I don't have from this image, is who authorized it. And so I don't even know if the transaction is valid or not. So it's very important. You're welcome to do business with Walmart and Target. Target also does this. But when you do, please keep in mind they will give you the check back, and then what you need to do is send the check to my office and let me know that I'll be seeing this come through. And it sure helps if I have, the information ahead of time, and then I can track it down. So please keep that in mind. Anytime you're doing transactions with Walmart or Target or maybe another vendor, please get that check if they give it back to you. And if they don't give it back to you, please give me the details and the receipt, and we can still document that properly. Lost or stolen checks. Again, going back to the financial services website and this drop-down menu, you see a stop payment request. The stop payment request is for lost or stolen checks. And whenever a check has been misplaced, for example, if a check was written out to reimburse an officer for a purchase and they lost their check, they can be reissued another check if you so desire. But again, what you'll want to do is fill out this form so that in case that original check is found and cashed, you don't end up paying the same person twice. And it happens all the time. And it's not that someone is trying necessarily to be fraudulent. A lot of times, a person will lose a check and ask for a new check. They'll cash the new check immediately. And then a year later, they open up one of their textbooks that they haven't opened in a year, and they find the check. They can't remember if they've cashed it or not, so they'll cash it again. So it's common for this thing to happen. But again, you don't want your funds being spent twice. So please fill out this form and return it to me so that on our records we can indicate that a check has already been cashed for this amount and we're not going to do it again. And this form is also good for those cases where a blank check is lost. The same procedure, fill out this form and send it to me so that we can void those checks and prevent them from being used in a fraudulent way. Requesting checks. Again, on this financial services website, on the drop-down, fourth one down, a check stock request. If you fill out this form, you can ask for new checks. You can indicate when you need them by, and you can indicate the quantity. And you can actually, using this option here at the top right-hand side, you can actually just email the document directly to me. And once you do that, I can issue you more checks. We need about 24 hours advance notice to get you checks. And please only order a semester supply. We have noticed that for those who sometimes order 100 checks or large quantities like that, they don't always make it to the new group of officers that arrive at the club at the start of a new semester. They're more easily lost when they're ordered in large quantities. Because we can get them to you in 24 hours notice, please only order a semester supply. And again, we'll get those to you. If you have to make multiple orders during a semester, we're okay with that. That's not a problem. Is there a question?
In case of missing checks, say we had about, say, 5 or 6 missing checks that we lost track of. Is there a fee for doing the stop payment on the checks?
There's a fee when the check has already been written out. When it's a blank check, there's no fee because it's actually much more difficult for the bank to find those checks. But I also make records of those checks, and so we can usually track them down that way. But there is no fee when it's a blank check. But when it is filled out, there's a $20 charge, and it's good for 6 months. Any other questions? Yes, please. And if anyone has a mic, let's see, could we have a mic passed down? And we might be able to hear you a little better.
What was good for 6 months?
The question was putting a stop payment on a check. If a check has been completed, we can put a stop payment on it, and the stop payment is good with the bank. In other words, the bank will flag the check for 6 months. After that, it needs to be renewed, another payment of $20 to keep it going.
Is this on right now? Okay. And I was also wondering, we have older checks, I think. We have a book that has like 3 checks at a time or something like that.
Yes.
Can we update to this new system? Do we just bring you our old checkbook? And
Oh, good. I'm glad you asked that. We're actually encouraging clubs to use up those checks. However, if you would prefer the new style, we probably could make those arrangements as well. And like you said, we would just need you to turn in those checks, and we can issue you some new ones with the new format. But otherwise, if you're not concerned about using the new format, you're welcome just to use up your old stock. Great question. Thank you. Cash handling and preparing deposits. Here you see an image of our policy regarding collecting funds for agency accounts. Keep in mind that deposits should be made at least weekly or daily when funds collected exceed $50. And again, what we're referring to here is when you're collecting dues for your club, when you collect more than $50, then the deposit should be made at least weekly or daily. And the place you go to take those funds is D155 of the administration building. And it's the department cashier's window. And that's where you'll turn in those funds. Keep in mind, when you are collecting funds, it is good to have several people involved so that, again, you are preventing any misunderstanding or any loss of funds. Keep also in mind that when you are going to make a deposit, this information here at the top where it says deposits agency account number, you'll need to be able to provide your agency account number, which is the 47 number followed by 6 numbers, so 8 digits total. In addition to that, you'll need a -4740. The 4740 designates the transaction as a deposit. When we print out your checks, we'll include your number, but then we'll put a -6490. That designates it as a withdrawal. So again, keep in mind, you'll want a -4740 whenever you're making a deposit. When you go to the cashier's window, she'll give you a deposit slip. You'll put your agency account number, -4740, to designate those funds as a deposit. And again, the cashier's window will take cash and check. Now, some of you may not want to have to do it that way, but you'll want to collect online. And if you do it online, you can use a credit card, and the system gathers all the information, and you don't have to worry about making a trip to D155 to deposit those funds. To do that, we will be providing a form for you that's a request for online payments. This form will gather information we need from you in order to process that. We'll need some club information. We'll need the amount of the due. We'll need to know what information you want to pick up from your customers. Obviously, you want to know their name, but in addition to that, we can collect their address, their email, their cell phone number, and some other supplemental information that you may want to know about those who are paying dues. We'll also ask you for a logo, and that just helps us separate your particular agency from the others. Let me show you an image of what it'll look like. What we'll do is we'll create a link for you that'll take you to this page, and you'll be along a list of several other clubs that are collecting online, and you'll see their logos. Again, when you have a logo, it helps distinguish your club from the others. You'll also be taken to this web page that'll ask for the information. Again, in this case, this club is asking for name, cell phone number, address, and city and state and zip. But again, we can customize these and ask any number of information for your particular club. Then they'll proceed to checkout. In this particular case, the due was $10, and then they'll pay with a credit card, and those are the credit cards that are accepted by this system. Could we get a mic in the back? It looks like we have maybe a couple of questions there in the back.
I was just wondering if there was a convenience fee for this.
I'm glad you asked that. There is. There is a fee. There's a monthly merchant fee. It is a cost associated with processing the credit card. These fees are passed on to the clubs, and they are about 2%. So please factor that in when you are doing it this way. The advantage is it's faster, it's cleaner. You don't have to worry about collecting checks and cash. But the downside is there is a cost associated with it. Thank you.
I actually have a couple of questions, but the first one is, it looks like this is mainly for dues.
Yes.
How do you set up the coding and everything if you're actually selling something? Yeah, subscriptions and journals. Okay. Can't remember my other question, so I'll just leave it.
Thank you. And I think there's some more hands. I know we have two mics. If we get the other mic headed toward the back. Yes.
Going along with what she was saying, if you're wanting to sell tickets or T-shirts or something, does it give them a receipt that'll, like, can we customize it so it'll put the quantity of what they bought, so that they can then come in and redeem it?
Yeah, we'll need to meet with you specifically about that. It's a very similar process, but we can definitely talk that over with you. It's a good question, and we'd love to set that up for you.
How difficult is the coding involved in getting this set up? Is it just like HTML code that you just copy and paste, or is it a bit more complex depending on what you're trying to do?
In your particular case, you're doing a separate website in your case, but what we're doing up here is just what we call a storefront. It's real simple for us to set up, so it's no headache for your folks to do it. Let's do a separate thing. Okay, I'll say that afterwards.
Any other questions? Yes, please, in the back.
Sir, is there a way for us to track our expenses online?
What we do for tracking expenses, when you are a new officer, you'll want to get in touch with me, because we'll want to make sure the controller over your area is aware that you're a new officer and that they'll send you monthly statements. And again, that is through the controller. If you are looking to get expenses for a semester or even a year, I'm happy to help you. I can facilitate a report for you that will show you all your income and your disbursements for a given period of time, and I can do that on a spreadsheet for you. As far as online access, we aren't set up exactly in that way right now, where you can just go and click on a website and get your account balance. However, you can call me and I can give you that account balance on a daily basis, and again, I can get you those reports when needed. So just
Thank you, sir.
Contact me. And let's get a mic here at the front. Great. You know, in cases where the advisor will be on for a while, it might make more sense to have the controller just send it to the advisor, and then the advisor can send it to the officers who change more frequently. And we have a few more questions here in the front. We have delegate.
Delegate the reports out. Delegate.byu.edu, and whoever has access to those reports can delegate them out to those.
Great. Great.
To what extent?
Yes.
Sorry. To what extent are we obligated to use these forms? I'm thinking specifically of the T-shirt or ticket example. A lot of times, we'll do that on our own and then just write one check to reimburse an individual who spearheaded the thing and write an $800 check. Is that appropriate, or do we need to have some sort of $5 at a time thing going through the site to make it legitimate?
Sounds fine. As long
Okay.
as you leave an audit trail.
Okay.
So as long as you leave an audit trail. Are there any other questions? Thank you. Special considerations. This is the last leg of our presentation. Sales tax. Agency accounts are not eligible to participate in the university's tax exemption. Let me see if I give you a little more information. BYU is a nonprofit, and they have tax exempt status. Now, the funds that you manage in an agency account aren't considered part of those funds, and so you aren't entitled to that tax exempt status. You should be charged sales tax in your transactions. The only exception to this policy is when you are a group that's part of a national organization, then you can fall under the national organization's tax exempt status. But otherwise, you should be charged sales tax. The people who do business with you won't have any special status just because you are a BYU agency account. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? Again, you should be charged sales tax. If you ever see yourself not being charged sales tax, please ask why and make sure the person knows that you don't fall under that status. Yes, question.
So my question then is, if we should be charged sales tax, if they're purchasing T-shirts and then selling them as a club for a fundraiser, should they be then collecting sales tax and remitting that to the State Tax Commission?
We've had that question come up before, I think.
Regulatory accounting about that particular instance.
So regulatory accounting, and actually I have a slide on regulatory accounting, but that would be an issue to talk to regulatory accounting about. John Gardner. Yes, question.
On that same subject, I've heard that if you're selling within the club, that it doesn't apply, but if it's outside, it might.
Yeah, that might be a question to ask regulatory accounting directly. Along with those, with that topic, donations. Clubs, again, do not qualify as charitable organizations. As a result, we can't give people a receipt saying that they've made a donation. There are groups that are welcome to donate to agency accounts, but when they do, again, they can't get a receipt so that they could qualify for a deduction in taxes. Please keep that in mind. If you ever ask that, again, we can't provide that because clubs don't qualify as a charitable organization. Regulatory accounting. In special circumstances where you're using an agency account to pay an honorarium, a scholarship, awards and prizes, gifts and gift cards, we will be submitting a copy of that check to regulatory accounting. And it may be, depending on how many of those things that a person gets in any one year and what the amounts are, that person may have additional taxes based on those things. But again, these things do get reported to regulatory accounting. Anytime you're making one of these, please specify it in the memo line. And then we can take appropriate action and send a copy to regulatory accounting. And congratulations, you've made it through the training. Here's my contact information. My supervisor is Terry Freak, and her information is listed there as well. Anytime you need to get a hold of me, you're welcome to email me, and you can just type in agencyaccounts@byu.edu, and that email will be sent directly to me. I have a few business cards here at the front. You're welcome to come and get one if you need one. Thank you very much for your time. For those that may have arrived late, please be sure to sign up on the rolls that we passed around so you can get credit for this training. And thank you for your participation.